Hi Chinchilla, I'm Bill Blake. I'm going to ask you to join with me to do a service for our community. I incorporated Grow Chinchilla Pty as a vehicle to gather community support to help address some issues which I think are critical to Chinchilla's economic recovery. And I think if not addressed, these issues have the potential to retard our economic recovery by as much as 15 to 20 years. So can you please just take a few minutes to watch this video and to have a look at our website? I'm then going to ask you to complete a submission and objection to Western Downs Regional Council in response to the first issue, which I think is critical to Chinchilla's recovery, which is a development application and for material change of use of land by Osco Modular for 1,000 permanent worker beds at Zeller Street, corner of Zeller Street and Price Street. I'm going to give you 6 reasons why we should object to this development application and material change of use. This Osco stayover camp was originally approved as a temporary facility to service the Hogan Creek Power Station build, and it was supposed to go immediately as that construction was completed. It then sought an extension to stay on to service the coal seam gas industry, which was quite appropriate. At some point, council realised that Osco, that the stayover camp was operating without relevant approvals to operate as a camp, and through a court action, the Planning and Environment Court, it was agreed that Osco would be required to lodge a development application and for material change of use of land in order for the camp to exist. So the implication is that for some period of time, Osco has been trading without the requisite approvals to operate such a camp. I'm going to give you 6 reasons why we should object to that application. The first is a question of creating surpluses. We've all seen now the damage that we did to our town by just creating an enormous oversupply, an enormous surplus of residential housing in our community. At the time, we all thought it was good growth. We all thought it was natural. We didn't foresee the consequences. But now that we have foreseen those consequences, we need to send a strong message to council that it ought not to approve, that it ought to strictly adhere to town planning law and ought not to approve anything in our town of which we already have sufficient. So we just don't need another 1,000 permanent worker beds in Chinchilla. We have experts' reports that demonstrate that creation of another 1,000 permanent worker beds in Chinchilla will have an overwhelming and long-lasting effect upon employment, social health, local retail and service businesses, housing prices, and our developing tourism. Most urgently is the damage that is being done to our local moteliers and accommodation providers whilst this camp exists. The second reason is that Osco was only ever supposed to be temporary. It was never supposed to be a permanent camp. I've talked about the court action with council and the obligation to lodge the development application and application for material change of use of land. How that works is that application has been made. Council then issued Osco with a request for further information, and that needs to be answered within 6 months. That would be by Monday, 12 September. Osco needs to furnish council with that further information about the development application. Also, it then has another 20 business days before it starts a 15 business day public notification period, and it's during that period that citizens and interested parties can lodge a submission and object to the application. The problem is, of course, Grow Chinchilla does not object to foreign entities operating in Chinchilla. In fact, consistent with the Chamber of Commerce attitude, we encourage businesses to be established in Chinchilla, to create an office here, to employ locally and to train us locally. So the fact that it's foreign owned is not the problem. What is a problem is that now that all of the worker accommodation is, or the majority of the worker accommodation is based at Osco Stayover Camp. Our locally owned operated camps are empty and at risk of closing. We've also seen the damage done to motels. We've now lost 3 local operators from our motel supply, and we understand that there are more to come. The third reason is that this camp sits in in town planning zoning, which is not appropriate for a worker camp, and there are noise issues and parking issues. There are trucks parked up and down Price Street all the time. So that's why it's applied for material change of use, because as of right, it can't operate that camp in that zoning. The fourth reason is a needs basis. We just don't need another 1,000 permanent worker beds in Chinchilla. We have existing, locally owned and operated, 494 worker beds already approved by Western Downs Regional Council and already in existence. We have estimates, and this is public notice. There are estimates by the CSG companies estimating that they'll need less than 350 worker beds at any particular time in Chinchilla during the CSG operations and maintenance program. As I say, our local motels are dying. That's going to have a really negative impact upon the regional chambers and with Western Downs Regional Council tourism initiative to bring tourism back to Chinchilla, which was lost during the CSG period. So we're not going to have the choice of motels, and we're at risk of losing all of our motels. There are already another 1,200 council-approved worker beds that are not yet built. Now, why are they not yet built? Because we just don't need them. There's no demand for them. Okay, we're just not going to need 1,000 worker beds in Chinchilla. Another 1,000 worker beds, that'd be a total of 1,694, so nearly 1,700 worker beds in a town of just over 5,000. It just doesn't make sense. The fifth reason is that as I've touched on before, our local tourism operators, our local accommodation operators are going to be damaged by this. We have reports to say this will be damaged. We've got locally owned and already approved camps empty, and our motels are operating at about a 20% occupancy rate, which is just unsustainable for them. And what's worse is it drives them to extraordinarily low overnight room rates, which are unsustainable. So, and I estimate that that's about 100 local jobs in our community in the accommodation sector, which would be lost. So, how many more empty houses is that if we lose another 100 odd workers in that development? The sixth reason is that Osco's development application and application material change of use is inaccurate. Grow Chinchilla's consultants have reviewed all of Osco's documents that comprise the DA and MCU application, and we've found significant accuracy. For example, it's overstated future demand. It hasn't justified another 1,000 beds. It has overstated the market differences between short and long-term accommodation and workers' accommodation villages. It's failed to strike a balance between positive and negative impacts upon the community. And in trying to demonstrate a need for 1,000 worker beds, permanent worker beds, it's referred to projects that we've known for ages are never going to happen, like the Link Energy, which is now in liquidation. It's been gone for a couple of years. Cockatoo Coal, which is in liquidation for 2 years. In any event, that was in Wandoan, not Chinchilla. The Solar Dawn solar project, that was terminated 3 years ago. Stanmore Coal and Wandoan Coal projects, which are nowhere near Chinchilla, they've been postponed for at least 2 years. And it refers to other projects that are nowhere near Chinchilla. So look, this is the process. During the 15 business day public notification period, I'm going to post to you a prepaid envelope back to Western Downs Regional Council, some of the information that's at this website, and a pro forma objection form. I'm going to ask you to fill out that pro forma objection form and to put it in the envelope and send it back to council. Alternatively, that objection form and all the information is going to be available at this website, and you can download that application form, that objection form, and email that off to council. All that information, how to do that, will be at this website. Also at this website will be a copy of OSCO's development application, and when received, it's further information received in response to the council RFI. And also that material, the OSCO DA and MCU, and its response to the request for further information, will be available for public inspection at the council temporary chambers, the old Origin temporary chambers between the RSL and the CWA at 63 Heaney Street. Anyone can go in and look at that, and I urge you to look at it either at this website or at council. So Chinchilla, this is a critical issue which is really going to further damage our housing, our accommodation. We're creating another surplus. Just like we did with our housing, we're going to create another surplus. We've seen the damage we've done to the housing, over 100, nearly 200 properties vacant, mortgagee sales, amazing, devastating decreases in real estate values. Let's not let this happen again with another industry, which is accommodation and tourism. Let's give our local operators a fair go. And let's create an even playing field. It's really important that we stress to council needs to strictly apply town planning law, and the councillors need to follow that. So thanks, Chinchilla. I really ask you to do this service for the community. And I don't ask you to do much. I've never asked you to do anything more. I've been so grateful to Chinchilla. It's provided me with a great way of life and an opportunity that I didn't otherwise have. This is my opportunity to do something back for the town. We're a very resilient town. The reason we're resilient is that when there's a crisis, people get in and do things for each other. I was very influenced by the 2010, 2011 floods, where people who'd suffered enormous personal damage actually jumped in their boats or got to town somehow with equipment to help out others and help out their neighbours. That's the sort of town we are. It's time to do something for our town and object to 1,000 additional permanent worker beds in Chinchilla that we just don't need and which is going to cause damage to our community. Thanks, guys.